And, and welcome to Nixon Peabody's What's New virtual series. I am Bill Weir, a partner in our Long Island office, and today I'll be talking about what's new in public finance. Please feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A box below, and I will try to address them towards the end of the program. What we really wanted to talk about was the paradox of 2020, 2021 in public finance. So if you go back in time, if you remember what it was like in the beginning of 2020 in January, the economy and the stock market were booming. Unemployment was at a record low. Um, Everything seemed like the world was a great place. And then all of a sudden, COVID-19 hit. And we were all shut down, Monday, March 16th, 2020. And nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody was going to happen to the economy, to us health-wise. It was a complete unknown. And everything just came to a screeching halt for about a month and a half. So we all, excuse me, should I put the phone on? And we all had to learn how to work remotely using Zoom and WebEx and other technology. We had to learn how to, with in public finance area, had to hold meetings that had normally been open meetings in public under the open meetings law. We had to learn how to hold them remotely, electronically, and even how to close transactions remotely. The whole learning process for everybody. And then, it was probably, looking back at the last 11 months, 13 months, it was the most challenging and difficult year in my career. I've been with the firm almost 36 years doing public finance. But in some ways, it was maybe the most professionally rewarding, successful year in my career. Because despite of COVID or because of COVID, we actually were able to close a record number of transactions that I didn't think would ever be possible during that period, and had a profound impact on a lot of people and a lot of lives. So a lot of good happened during a very bleak period of time. Once everyone figured out how we could work together, one of the things that we really did, working with our IDA, Industrial Development Agency, or IDA clients, and local development corporations, or LDC clients, particularly the ones on Long Island that were the forefront of it, was having to come up with programs to help businesses and not-for-profits that were adversely impacted by COVID. So one of the things that we did was, working with the IDAs and LDCs, we came up with sales and use tax exemption programs, as well as small grant and loan programs to help some of those segments of the economy that were the most impacted, and which at that point there was really very little help. The PPC loans were just starting to come out. Nobody knew who would be eligible for them, and the IDAs and the LDCs really came to the forefront of those programs. And the Long Island IDAs really, I think, took the lead for all the IDAs across the state, the same with the LDCs. One of the things that we worked on early on in this process, and the purpose of those loans were so the companies could buy personal protection equipment, install everything from gloves and masks they had to get, installing those plexiglass dividers they need to install, as well as being able to operate. So those loans and grants were pretty essential to a number of small businesses and also not-for-profits. One of the things we did early on in the pandemic, we represented the Bank of New York Mellon Capital Markets. They're an underwriter based in New York City, affiliated with the Bank of New York Mellon, one of the oldest banks in the United States. And we worked with BNY Mellon, with the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, create a $500 billion municipal credit facility, where municipalities that were, again, facing large costs as well as decrease in tax revenues could borrow directly from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York at a very low interest rate. And again, that enabled not only municipalities, states, municipalities, and public authorities. So people like the MTA were just hemorrhaging money like crazy because the ridership was down, yet they were trying to keep subways and buses and tunnels and bridges running, were able to borrow large amounts of money from the Federal Reserve Bank at a fairly low interest rate. And it really kept the MTA going. And a number of other municipalities in the area were able to do that, as well as states. The state of New Jersey borrowed, I think, something to the tune of $4 billion from them to keep them going. So that was really very early on. And then, as we got into later spring and the summer, all of a sudden, some of the segments of the economy that were hardest hit and ones I did not think would be able to do borrowing really came to the forefront, and they needed to borrow money. And it was some ways, while they were hard hit and it was difficult, interest rates were at a very low interest rate historically, and they were able to do that. So, one of the things we did very early on, we helped one of the major hospitals on Long Island enter into a $100 million line of credit with a bank to keep them operating, to make sure they had the cash reserves. Because, as you recall, they were treating COVID patients, but all the other typical outpatient work, as well as even non-emergency medical procedures, were all curtailed by the state. So again, hospitals saw a dramatic decrease for a while in revenues, and we were able to help that one particular, one of the most significant hospitals in Long Island enter into a $100 million line of credit to keep themselves operating. It was needed, at a very early stage in the COVID, and it was instrumental in keeping that hospital up and running. Another one we worked on, this is through the Brookhaven Local Development Corporation, Long Island Community Hospital, which is, I believe, the last unaffiliated hospital on Long Island. It's formerly known as Brookhaven Memorial Hospital Medical Center. It's in Patchogue. We did a major bond financing for them, about a $76 million bond financing that enabled them to refinance two series of existing bonds they had outstanding, as well as do a number of very significant capital improvements for the hospital. And again, trying to do a hospital financing while they're in the midst of dealing with a very heavy COVID patient load was significant financing for them. And it was really critical. And it also, and if you saw in the paper recently, they have entered into discussions with NYU Langone Hospital for some kind of affiliation agreement. And they knew that eventually they would probably look to affiliate with another hospital system. And one of the purposes of that refinancing was to enable them to have their debt in order and with covenants that would allow them to do any kind of a merger or affiliation agreement. So that was a critical step for their continued operations. Another area that you've heard hit hard were the nursing homes and senior housing. Yet during this pandemic, we did a major financing for Jefferson Ferry, which is a continuing care retirement community in South Setauket. It was opened up around 2000, or started construction 2000, opened up I think in 2002. So this was their first significant. They had done some other minor renovations and improvements. This was a major expansion of their independent living units, as well as their assisted living units and skilled nursing beds or units, and their memory care unit. They're expanding all of those areas, as well as rebuilding, 20-year-old facilities for the common areas, for dining halls and recreational facilities and so forth. So again, being able to do this type of financing in the midst of COVID was a real testament, not only the impact of the local development agency, but is also the management of Jefferson Ferry, which is phenomenal. And then the other major continuing care retirement community in Long Island, Peconic Landing, which is out in Greenport, through the Suffolk County Economic Development Corporation. Again, we did a series of refinancings of prior bonds for them, bonds that we had done 10 years earlier. They were able to take advantage of the lower interest rates, refinance those bonds, and again, help them weather the storm by having a lower interest rate. So, in the area of healthcare, um, being able to finance projects that helped these agencies survive COVID was really important. Another one was actually a brand new financing that just closed last month, but we started working on it a year ago, was for the Gerwin Jewish geriatric facilities in Hauppauge. Um, and what they did was they created a new independent living facility called Fountain Gate there, which turns their facility into a CCRC, a continuing care retirement community. They had previously had skilled nursing and then assisted living. This was the final component, the independent living. So that was another one, again, that people said you couldn't finance during COVID and did get financed. A couple of the areas, again, that were very active in the last 13 months, and ones where you didn't think people would be able to do the financings, but because they were so hard hit, was in the education, both university and college level, and the elementary through secondary, high school level. First one was Academy Charter School, financed through the Hempstead Local Development Corporation. Academy Charter School has facilities in both the village of Hempstead and in Uniondale. Very successful, extremely well run charter school. I think maybe one of the best run in the country that I'm aware of. We did a major financing for them last June, so that get facilities up and running by the fall, and they were open and children are going there. And we just started on another facility in Uniondale campus for their high school there, and we hope to have those bonds issued by the end of June so we can start construction, and that will open in the fall of 2022. So here you have charter school up and running, kids being educated in class, and still doing major financings and expansions. So just great, great story, particularly when you see the success that they have with their children. Several other colleges on Long Island that we completed financings for. One was for St. Joseph College in Patchogue. We issued $15 million of tax-exempt bonds through the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York to build a student center at their Patchogue campus. And then also they have a major sewer hookup through the village of Patchogue Sewer Authority. And so the sewer line was being extended from Waverly Avenue all the way north up to the campus. And then eventually every building on that campus will be hooked into a transfer station that was built on the campus. So again, and college that was able to continue. The graduated students last spring. Fall semester started some in person, some live, and the same with the spring semester, but they continue to operate. And then we just closed last month a major refinancing for Delphi University, also through the Town of Hempstead Local Development Corporation. And again, that was a refinancing of old bonds, taking advantage of the lower interest rate savings to save the university money. And we just started working on a new project, $125 million financing for Hofstra University, where I went to law school. So it's my alma mater. I'm very, very pleased to work on this one. And this is going to be a lot of new construction, renovations of existing buildings, and refinancing of existing indebtedness. So again, a very significant financing. So when you're looking at the education sector, areas that were hit very hard, and yet we had innovative universities, colleges, and charter schools who were able to not only do these financings, but continue to operate, continuing their educational mission. And local IDAs and local LDCs were able to help them, as well as DASNY. So really important. Another area where was very active in another area that was very active in the last year and a half was the area of housing, including not only affordable housing, but market rate housing. One of the things we did work on in this period, we helped the town of Brookhaven IDA redevelop their uniform tax exemption policy, which is required for every IDA in New York State to have a UTEP. And Brookhaven is doing a lot of housing recently, and they wanted to make sure that what they were doing was proper, was inducing projects to come forth and in the right locations and doing the right things. So we spent a lot of time helping them create that new UTEP, and it's, I think, maybe one of the most comprehensive UTEPs across the state. And they made very significant policy decisions with respect to market rate housing, senior housing, assisted living housing, as well as 100% affordable housing. And so again, that was a lot of work by their staff and their board, and a number of my partners in our firm as well helping with that. And as a result, we were able to close several 100% affordable housing projects. One example in Rocky Point, another one in the village of Port Jefferson, and a number of market rate housing, all extremely needed in Long Island. As you know, the face of housing in Long Island has changed from, you know, the post World War II single family home model to a more diverse stock of housing, including rental housing. It's really critical to, it really supports the finance, um, the businesses on Long Island. One of the complaints that a number of businesses have, they can't employ people because they can't afford to live in Long Island. So having market rate housing that has affordable housing and workforce housing components, as well as affordable housing, critical to the economic health of Long Island. Another really significant project that's going on right now, slated to close very quickly, is Phase 2A of the Ronkonkoma Hub. This is being done by the town of Brookhaven IDA, and so this is the redevelopment of the area around the Ronkonkoma train station, and it's critical to that area. That was an area that was very blighted, a lot of old buildings, car junkyards and so forth, and yet, you know, surrounding what was, you know, the most significant train station in Suffolk County. And now that area is being redeveloped with housing, offices, retail, mixed use. What has been built to date is beautiful, and they'll continue. So that's an ongoing process. We'll have several more phases, but Phase 2A looks to close in the next, probably later this month. Hempstead, town of Hempstead IDA has several affordable housing projects on their plate that should be closing shortly. They closed some in 2000, excuse me, in 2020, and they have some more for 2021. Also critical to local housing stock. And most of these projects are transit oriented facilities. They're near train stations or bus lines. So again, important for people living there. And then town of Islip IDA is doing a very large project for in Bayshore, and they're also doing some other projects in Central Islip, redeveloping the what's remaining portions of the old Central Islip psychiatric facility. So again, really critical to the development of the town there. Another really interesting project we have going on, it's been going on for several years, and it's a joint project between the Suffolk County Industrial Development Agency and the Suffolk County Economic Development Corporation, which is an LDC. It's the Prospect Sports athletic fields that'll be built in Kings Park, right along the between Indian Head Road and Saginaw Coast Parkway. Going to be a large number of outdoor fields as well as indoor facilities, and there will be a sports medicine complex there. It will be the largest such facility on Long Island, the only one that will really be able to not only provide facilities for people on Long Island, but they'll be able to attract tournaments from off of Long Island onto Long Island right now. If anybody in Long Island, you got kids who are playing soccer, kids playing lacrosse, you're doing a lot of traveling off the island to these tournaments, whether they're further up in state New York or in New Jersey or Connecticut or even down to Pennsylvania. Um, Hopefully, once this opens up in another year, you'll be able to uh, stay on the island for these tournaments. So I think a lot of parents looking forward to that. Other projects that are going on Long Island, Henry Schein Company is doing a major expansion. They're now one of Long Island's largest employers, and Suffolk County IDA has been involved with helping them for a number of years, and we're involved in 2 new projects for them. Suffolk IDA also just did another major expansion. There's a facility out at Gretzky Airport, which is the old Suffolk Air Force Base, which is now combination Air National Guard base, and also Suffolk County took over that base. A number of years ago, Suffolk County did a RFP to develop some land on the outside of the fence, and it was taken over by Reckler organization, and we've been over the years steadily building that space out, and we just did another major project for them this year that closed. And then Islip IDA is working on a project for a aerospace company. Again, another segment of the economy that was hit really hard by COVID. And so we have a manufacturer of aerospace products, primarily used in commercial aviation, Boeing and other projects like that. And they are consolidating their 2 facilities on Long Island and a facility from California. They'll be all consolidated into a newly renovated facility in Long Island. So that's a company we're able to keep here on the island. They had options going elsewhere, but we're keeping them here on Long Island, which is really critical. And then the other area that was very active throughout 2020 and before that, but continued through 2020 and continuing into 2021, are alternative energy projects. And we've done a number of these in Brookhaven for solar, fuel cells, and battery storage facilities. The solar facilities, pretty typical. You see the solar panels out. The other 2, the fuel cells, are really incredible technology. You're taking a chemical reaction, it's an exothermic reaction, which gives off heat so you can produce electricity. And the only byproduct of it is water vapor. So, you're basically combining hydrogen and oxygen, creating heat, and your byproduct is water. So the impact on the economy is negligible. Excuse me, impact on the environment is negligible. The impact on the economy is incredible. And then the other one, because we have so much solar now and fuel cells, and we're starting to develop more of the wind farms, particularly offshore, we're doing battery storage facilities. So one of the issues with these alternative energy projects, they don't necessarily produce the energy when they're needed. And this solar only works when it's sunny, and wind only works when it's windy. So what you need to do is be able to capture the excess energy they create when they're not needed, and then store it so that it can go into the grid when it is needed. So that's something that is very important, and we're starting to do with those as well. The wind projects you've all read about in Newsday, they will be built offshore. And so one of the things that we've been looking at with a couple of the IDAs are when that power comes on shore, it needs to be, we need to create or build power lines that'll probably be, in every circumstance I've seen, will be underground. So you won't have these big high tension lines above ground, they'll be underground, but they do have to hook into the grid and come up to the larger transfer station. So we'll be seeing a number of those projects. And then one of the last projects I wanted to talk about was one that Brookhaven IDA has been working on, again, for several years and is almost ready to close. Is for a company called American Organic Energy. There was a really big article about it in the New York Times a couple of years ago. They take yard waste as well as food waste. They put it in a large machine that's called a digester that takes all that organic material, turns it into three components. The first is a natural gas that can be used to burn, create electricity, or used to fuel vehicles. Very clean burning fuel. Second one is pure water that comes out that can go back in, be used for any purpose, from landscaping to putting back in the aquifer. And the last product that comes out is a solid waste that is an organic material that's compost, and actually will be sold to companies like Scott's Miracle Grow or other companies that sell, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any other place and buy the bag mulch. Well, this is the type of stuff you can buy for that mulch, because this will be, through the heat from the process, it kills all bacteria, all chemicals, and it's pure, it's a great product. So this is a facility that's, again, meeting the needs of the environment, keeping waste out of the landfills, and producing clean energy and pure water. So those are some of the things that we, what was new in public finance in the last year and a half. It's been as I said, very strange and unusual year, but we got a lot done. And I think as we come out of the economic morass we've been in, as the economy's picking up, companies on Long Island that have taken advantage of financings through the IDAs and the LDCs on Long Island, or some of the state agencies, are going to be very well positioned to move forward as the economy picks up. So with that, I'm just looking. If anyone has any questions, if you just type them in the chat room. I'm not seeing any right now. Okay, we're just about out of time. So again, I hope you found this information useful. If you have a question you'd like to discuss one-on-one, please don't hesitate to contact me. And then our next session of What's New will be held on April 21st, when my partner Rika Nokovic will talk about what's new in emerging company capital raising. So this is, again, if you have an emerging company and you need to figure out how to raise capital to get that going, please turn it into Rika's comments. And thank you for joining me, and hope you enjoyed this. Bye now.